You see this right here? Just that big brain play. Little sneaky gobbo gonna eye the forces. We'll sneak up on them Skaven gits. Yes, indeed. Courtesy of SlateX, who always sends me hilarious Greenskins replays. Grom the Paunch currently stocked, hidden along with a bunch of flappers. We've got trolls here of many varieties. Orc Shaman also shuffling in. Bunch of gobbos out on a flank attack, immediately taking some poison globes to the face. Night Goblins, we've got Rusty Airs, Warlord's Boys, 8-peak Loons, a couple Spider Riders swooping around the back. Throt the Thick Boy, so have another Thick off here, which is just amazing. The Flappers and Trolls are coming to make contact with this line of clan rats. Look at this. Oh yeah. Having taken no nasty mortar fire or anything else like that on the approach, not that there was a lot of long range. I mean, I guess Natty Bubo sharpshooters could have been sniping away at something like those Flappers, but a big old chunk right through the center, and immediately clan rats just evaporate. Yeah, over here, Stone Trolls having a little bit of a slower time, but they certainly will be able to win that out in the late game. Just pressuring those Poison Wind units, very important. The big old push through the center, Warp Grinder being used to kind of freeze those Flappers in place, but the Flappers are still in contact with these weapons teams. The Flappers themselves, I've been meaning to cover these guys. They are criminally underrated for the Greenskins. People basically immediately forgot about them, but 80 charge, 50 weapon strength with great armor piercing. With WA, they're juiced up to 50 melee attack as well. Only 50 armor, they're relatively squishy, low leadership, but they don't cost a lot for that significant kind of AP. And who says chariots have been nerfed? I mean, nobody told these guys. They come in here and with their anti-infantry kind of splash, weird like splash attacks, actually just wreck those wolf rats, demolish their leadership, and send them packing to the hills. So yeah, Flappers so far proving very effective. The Trolls also, up against the regenerating horror that is Throt the Unclean. They will also counter his regeneration with regeneration, and they'll counter the degeneration of this degenerate plague caster with their own healing, which is just fantastic. Got some regular trolls in here. Got the Gobbos. Warlord's Boys are immune to psychology. Not that this thing causes terror, but it does cause fear, I think. No, not even that. Wow, really? Okay. Interesting. Flappa's coming in for another rear charge there, but they're still, you know, regular brood horror over here. They're still Throt the Unclean, who's done a ton of damage to Grom now to try and keep things from getting too far out of hand in terms of balance of power. The Skaven are not out of this yet. Natty Bubo's back online, being protected by some doggos here in case those Flappers get any ideas. Although, to be honest, the Flappers will just demolish the Hounds, I'm pretty sure. Even the armor-piercing Hounds, I don't know, I'd be curious to test that. That's a weird interaction I wouldn't think to test, but it is one that is potentially interesting. Flappers against especially the armor-piercing Hounds. I'd be curious. Let me know, guys, in the comments if you end up testing that and how it works. Not a super cost-effective trade. I mean, it's not that far off in terms of cost efficiency, but nice rear charge from the Flappers here. There's just consistent summons in this center pocket trying to drain down, and a nice Plague Monk summon. The Plague Monks actually, considering there's not too many Stone Trolls here, it's mostly River Trolls and regular Trolls for the time being, their high DPS and leadership actually be decent. 36 weapon strength, 36 attack, 120 models, sorry, 90 models on this unit setting. They'll get in here and be able to saturate a little bit of damage, even though they're kind of anti-infantry, and the Trolls count as large. And this Brood Horror has just had a saga all its own fighting these Stone Trolls out here for a hot minute. They've been just kind of wet noodling each other back and forth for quite some time. But a little bit of Skaven-friendly fire here is to be expected. That will do some damage. Night Goblins hanging in tight, which is something you can't often say. But the Flappers, man, the Flappers to go after weapons teams, love it. Because the Skaven, even with the mass changes, Skaven probably as a as a whole, in terms of their infantry, have the worst mass. A lot of them are kind of looser formation. They really very flimsy, very light, kind of low HP per model. So it would stand to reason that Chariots is still probably going to be pretty effective against Skaven, even if they have some tools to counter you, which you could consider the Brood Horror and Throt as kind of counter Chariot tools in some circumstances, but when you have this many large targets to go after, it's just a lot to deal with, especially given that the Trolls are regenerating. Couldn't shoot them at all on the approach. You have this confusing, like, tiny Night Goblin flank attack, and then all of a sudden, Surprise! Here's a bunch of greenskins right in your face. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff, yes. Balance of power has been clawed back, though, by the Skaven pretty significantly here, as they're able to just kind of drain and keep regenerating as well. The Brood Horror is down, I believe, the kind of regular Brood Horror, yep, but Throt is still approaching his healing cap. Likewise, Grom has been taking successive damage as well. Slade's doing a good job keeping him out of combat, though, and kind of safe over on the flank here. But Rusty Air is firing still. The fact they're online, they can sunder the armor of this Plague Priest. Quite nice, put it down to 60 armor. A lot of these units have AP, but of course all quote-unquote AP units also have non-AP damage, so armor sundering does help them to a degree as well. Oh man! Oh, sad day. Sad day for the Clan Vulcan's Tail Slashers. They probably all deserve it, to be honest. But, yeah, Flappas. I just love the animations for the Flappas, too. Like, this dude on top is having absolute time of his life. Although, could you imagine, like, depending on how much those wings weigh, that guy's gonna have, like, shoulders the size of watermelons, I swear. Anyway, Snotlings aside, back to the regenerating blob. Big rats coming after Big Gobbo. Just to be expected. But Big Gobbo, thankfully, has plenty of trolls left, not only in his belly, but also on the field. And they can come in here and kind of body block a little bit for their thick master. Oh yeah, and here come the Flappas in the late game. 80 charge with decent AP means they actually do kind of do some damage to the Plague Priest, believe it or not. Plague Priest looks like just detonated one of them. But hey, they still got a couple of models online. Plague Priest also getting peppered. And look at this troll rush. There's still so many trolls left. That's how you play attrition as the Greenskins, apparently. If you can keep your leadership online and just keep your opponent on the back foot. And it definitely seems like, you know, no disrespect to the Skaven player. I probably would have had the same reaction, but just very, very intense. A lot to deal with all at the same time, which is kind of the point, I guess. Very cool build. I've seen Slade use this tactic against Skaven quite a bit throughout the patches, and it never gets old. It's always a good time, for sure. Whatever kind of variations of trolls and chariots and other random things gets brought in. I do believe this is 100% tournament legal, too. This particular iteration of this build. You do have enough models because of the Night Goblins and the Spider Riders, and yeah. Grom doesn't get that much damage value, but does manage to tank quite a bit of damage, kind of offering himself up as bait here. And Pacifist Warlord, very good player, I'm familiar with him. Had a pretty good game as well. Ends up being decently close, but the carry, as we'll see, is definitely in one of these Flappas, at least 2,000 damage value for a unit that's, what, 650? Absolutely insane. The Stone Trolls also absolutely carrying on their rocky backs. I don't know. 1,500 damage value, almost 2,000 there. River Trolls definitely didn't do as much, but they're more here for the debuff than anything else. Regular Trolls also just kind of here to tank some damage, hang around until the late game. Rusty Arrows did pay for themselves. The Night Gobbos, bit of a mixed bag, but they're also, again, here mostly just to soak HP damage. Throt managed to get pretty good damage value there, probably paid for himself. Same thing for the Plague Priest. This Chaff, though, just got hardcore run over, just smashed into the ground like pancakes. Even the Tail Slashers able to kind of pay for themselves, but still not get a single kill. They paid for themselves in terms of damage value, but they didn't kill a single troll, right? Which is basically what that means. They're fighting trolls the whole time. And interestingly enough, their fire damage, you would think they'd actually be able to kill a couple troll models, but just too much stuff to deal with, right? Especially the Flappas. This Brood Horror doesn't pay for itself, despite how cheap it is. Some of the Wolf Rats, one of them at least, getting some really nice value. And the Glopes, again, doesn't take much for them to pay for themselves either, but just barely kind of yes and no. Giselles were a tough time. That's pretty bad for Giselles. Warp Grinders, again, not really a damage value unit per se, but sometimes they can get some good damage value if you get those seismic quakes. But fun build and strategy, I have to say. Using that Night Shroud to good effect, and of course you've got Skarsnik as well, who is maybe not as good in that matchup anymore because he's too slow and gets killed by somebody like Snitch. Pretty bad. So I wouldn't say Skarsnik is necessarily recommended against Skaven, but what am I looking for? Greenskins, here we go. But yeah, that Night Shroud spell, the Skitter Leap also for the Skaven is one that people do tend to forget about. More so because for the Skaven, like, you mostly want to take summons, and there's often you want to take Howling Warp Gale as well, and just hero slots in general at a premium for Skaven, as is Winds of Magic. So the Eshin Sorcerer often gets overlooked, but you do have Skitter Leap, which is only single target. I believe if you overcast it, does give an AoE, yes. So it will give a 40 meter AoE, which is pretty good. 25 seconds, also gives speed. But if we look at this Night Shroud here, there's a difference. This one, it does have, you can see here, 40 meter effect, radius baseline, right? And 41 second duration. If you overcast it, goes up to 82 second duration, which is a long time. That's, what, almost a minute and a half of being stock and unspottable for you to approach your opponent, kind of negate their potential artillery advantage, whether they have mortars or Giselles in this case of Skaven, or whatever else. Definitely is a strategy you could use against dwarfs or, you know, Coast, of course, any faction, Wood Elves potentially even as well. If there's any faction you think you might run into a spam of missiles, especially missiles that won't come scout you out, because although it does say stock and unspottable, especially if a flying unit like flies right over top them, they will get spotted still. So someone can scout you if they have the right units, but Skaven don't really have the tools to do so. Fun stuff though. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.